Hey guys, welcome to Sketch Day. I'm Spencer, where every day I give you something new and interesting about how to draw and see the world around you. And you might think that this is my iPad Pro here on my desk, but actually I have with me my Surface Pro 4, and I'll be doing a quick demo on this tablet showing my workflow using Autodesk Sketchbook Pro. I almost said Adobe. Autodesk Sketchbook Pro. And the reason I'm doing this is because of you guys. You've asked me a few times to do an actual demo on the Surface Pro 4, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have the Surface Pro 4 pen with me and the machine here. If you don't have these very expensive machines and tablets, that's okay. You can follow along with pen and paper. The principles apply just the same. However, there are a few cool tools that we can use, and I'll show you a few of those here as we jump into Sketchbook Pro. So like I said, this is Sketchbook Pro, and one of the advantages that the iPad Pro has, the Surface Pro 4 has over the iPad Pro is that I can run what's typically referred to as desktop class software. In other words, the same software you run on your desktop, you can run on the Surface Pro 4. So if you have your favorite CAD program, things like Google SketchUp, or if you want to use Adobe Photoshop, you can use the same version of that software on your desktop, like my desktop back there, as I would on this device. So that presents some cool advantages, meaning for one, I have a file system, so I can plug a USB drive in, access a file, work on it here, go plug it in at work or elsewhere, and be able to work on that file. Really cool. So to get started, just want to show you a couple tools. Specifically, I'm going to be using the perspective guide. Not something I typically use, but I just want to show you. So if I want to set up a drawing and I tap that perspective guide button, I'm presented with this line, which represents your horizon line. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please look at my video that covers 1, 2, and 3-point perspective, and you'll understand a little bit more about the terminology that I'm using. In any case, I can move these manipulators up to adjust where my horizon line is. So, for example, in this sketch, I'm going to be drawing something like a Hot Wheels racer type vehicle. So I want my horizon line to be a little bit higher. Okay, and I'm going to start my drawing like so. In fact, in Sketchbook Pro, you can actually place your vanishing points outside your drawing, which is really useful. It's like we used to do back in the day when we did technical drawing. Now, I've started drawing here, but the important thing is this line is actually tracking to my left and right vanishing points. So I can rough in, for example, a wireframe of where things like my wheels would live on this vehicle. Okay, here's some nice squares, and I can project that out and do my rear wheel, for example, or if that rear wheel is going to be a little bit bigger, since this is going to be kind of a hot rod, I can sketch that in. Okay, just kind of rough it in to my drawing. Things like where the cab would be on the vehicle, and we're going to play with proportion in this particular sketch. So I'm going to draw a nice little tight cab. Okay, we can map out where our big old intake for the engine is going to be, and so this is all just roughing out, okay, my perspective. And again, the cool thing is now I can turn this guide off. I can do things like move this around on my canvas or scale it, and so now I can have this, in a reasonable spot on my canvas. Okay, so I'm going to switch to just the standard default pencil. If I click on Window, Layer Editor, I have my layer editor here, which means I can do things like adjust the opacity, add new layers, and so forth. So I don't use a lot of tools when I sketch, or I don't like to rather. So I'm just going to kind of rough in these wheels. So I've got a front wheel. I like to start with the wheels whenever I'm drawing something like a car. It's kind of like starting with the eyes if you're drawing a person. Okay, So that's my unit of measurement, and that's how I evaluate proportion as I go. Now I'm gonna keep this sketch really loose, but you can see I'm just adding some detail here to show the rims, for example, on this vehicle. Just a nice simple rim. And so now I can start to focus on the body, and I'm going to do that on a new layer. So I've created a new layer, and I'm just going to go ahead. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually looking for kind of the halfway point of this initial block form that I sketched in, and I'm sketching toward that halfway point, and that's going to give me kind of a reference, right, to where this needs to be. Now Hot Wheels vehicles tend to be kind of crazy, so we're gonna have fun here and exaggerate a few things. So let's say our front grille and wheel well here. We're gonna bring this down, and then I'm gonna have some fun stuff happening in the back. But let's kick these front wells up. Okay, here's my headlight, and I just like this like crazy fish-mouthed intake that kind of sticks out. So I'm gonna stick this out in the front. Okay, and this is gonna be some insane intake on the front of my car. Now, like I said, for the cab, I was gonna exaggerate a few things, so I'm gonna really have an aggressive rake or angle down right in here, and the cab, I'm gonna have these wheel wells just be really flared in the back. Okay, kind of bring that down, almost like a really classic look here. Okay, a nice strong bone line through the middle, like so. And I want a nice fat spoiler on the back. So I kind of have a nice base that I can work with here, but I want to kind of tweak things, right? So I kind of roughed in my spoiler and all that good stuff. I can turn, well actually let's go ahead and merge this layer down. So if I just tap and hold, I can drag down, it merges it. So now this is one layer. I'm going to go ahead and turn off that base layer and actually drop the opacity, okay, on this layer that I had for my sketch. And the reason for that is now I can do things like have some nicer, more defined lines as I'm drawing. Okay, so let's make a new layer. And I always like to test my brush out before I start drawing. And the reason for that is sometimes when you adjust the size of a brush, it's hard to see exactly what you're going to get. But this actually might give me a chance to talk about something, which is usually I like to have my own custom brushes anyways. So if I open up my brush library right here, and let's see, let's go to this do-it-yourself brush. I'm going to go to advanced here and adjust a few things. So for example, I'm going to change my edge to a sharp edge on this brush. And let's see, let's drop this radius, adjust my opacity. I don't really want to be adjusting the flow because I want a nice kind of inking brush like that. Okay, so now I'm going to hit, just in case, I'm going to hit export, and I'm going to export that to my desktop and just save it. But now this brush should be that do-it-yourself brush, okay? You can see there's a nice variation in line weight if I want it to be there. Okay, so if I go lighter, I'll get a nice thin line. Or if I go heavier, I'll get a thick line. Okay, so like I said, I just want to come back over this sketch that I had and continue to exaggerate a few things. I'm kind of a Windows newbie, so if I do something that looks like I'm crazy, it's because I don't typically use Windows, okay? So forgive me. I know it's probably painful to watch, but I'll get better. So you can see one of the things that's a little bit annoying is the palm to pen kind of pickup is a little bit challenging on this Surface Pro. I definitely do get that on the iPad Pro as well, but it doesn't seem to happen nearly as much. So just a little observation in my limited use here. Okay, so let's get this roughed in, or not roughed in, but get some nice lines in. And so for the outline of this sketch, I can kind of make these lines a little bolder and expressive because they're kind of the final lines of my sketch, if you will. So I can be a little bit more expressive with those final lines than I was per se with my initial lines. Okay, so I've got my nice outline there on the overall thing. And let's flip the tablet over. Hopefully it doesn't rotate everything. There we go. So now I can sketch back like so and rotate back here. Okay, I don't know what just happened, but it looked crazy. I think I sketched upside down and something funky happened. So this is a little challenging. I'm gonna concede that maybe it's the software, but certainly not as smooth as I've experienced on certain other devices. That's what I'll say. So, but your mileage may vary, right? So everyone certainly draws differently. Okay, so let's get a nice funky glass detail in there. And seems like Hot Wheel cars a lot of time, like a lot of stuff is exaggerated, right? So even things like the spoiler, for example, on my final sketch, I can come in and make these fins just a little bit bigger, a little bit more aggressive, for example. And just punching that outline is going to help clean things up a bit. Now, one of the really, so I'm using my fingers, pinching the zoom, and it's not zooming out. Okay, there we go. So it took a little while to catch up with me there, but you could see I put the pen down so I could pinch the zoom, but it was still giving me grief there. One of the really great things about Sketchbook Pro, especially the desktop version, is the tools for sketching are really phenomenal. So if you saw, or hopefully you saw rather, at the beginning we used the perspective tool. There's also things like an ellipse tool to help you draw ellipses or circles even. There's a ruler. There's all these really great tools that you can use, okay? I did forget one thing, so I'm going to put that in, but let's draw it on a new layer since I didn't have an undersketch, and that is I'm going to put a little engine kind of intake here. Oh, by little I mean, if this were a normal car, this would be pretty ridiculous. I do get the eraser on the iPad Pro, which is really nice. So Apple, if you're watching, that's something we want you to fix for the next version. Get an eraser built into that pencil. Okay, so just a quick little funky intake. All right, something beefy, cut into the engine, you know, all that good stuff. And I like hinting at the inside of a vehicle, but this is kind of a Hot Wheels car, so we'll just leave it somewhat undefined. So I mentioned the ellipse tool, so here it is. It's this little manipulator that I can drag around on the screen. So I can move it in place, change the size, rotate it, and get it in place. Now the cool thing is I can really line this up with my perspective. So if I'm not super confident about my perspective, it's really nice to have this tool. And the pen will actually snap to this tool. Okay, so that now I can draw a series of ellipses, for example, and really kind of nail where things need to be. So there I have a wheel, and on the back I can kind of do the same thing. Since this is further back, it's going to be a little bit wider of an ellipse, but it also will be rotated. I forgot to rotate that just a little bit. So rotate, scale, move. And let's scale this down for the inside. Okay. Scale up for the other side of the wheel. This is a really wide wheel. So once I get rid of that guide, I can now kind of finish things off, right? So let's zoom in and finish out. Even though I use the tool, I like to kind of apply my own hand-drawn details to things, because that's going to help it not feel like, oh, a computer did it, right? So, and that's just a personal thing. I think, well, I don't want to get started on digital sketching per se, but let's just say they can all look really similar if you're not careful. So if you're using lots of tools, things can start to look less human and more machine created. So, all right, back rim, detail there, and a little mistake there. Okay, put the pen down, let's see if this works. Didn't work, pinch to zoom, okay, worked this time. All right, so there's my Hot Wheels style, hot rod type crazy car. Probably could have been a little bit crazier, but as you can see, the Surface Pro 4 is also a good tool to use if you're looking for something to sketch digitally. I'll try and do a few more of these as well with other products. Maybe even some of the same products I've done before or same things, but I'm going to give the Surface Pro a fair shake for you SP4 fans out there. So thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, and even if you don't like what you saw, feel free to share it. If you want to laugh at it, that's okay. I just want to get this out to as many people as possible, so please share the video. You can also become a subscriber to sketchaday.com on YouTube, and that means that anytime I post a video, you'll get an update. Especially if you use the mobile app, you'll just get a push notification that says, hey, Sketchaday posted something, which is kind of cool. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/sketchaday and Instagram at sketchaday.com. And I'm also on Twitter at Daily Sketches. More importantly, however, I am now on Patreon at patreon.com/sketchaday. And what is that? Well, Patreon is kind of like Kickstarter for creators, meaning you can pledge a certain amount of money toward what we're doing here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to have better cameras, better lighting, and also do things like dedicate time to having a weekly web broadcast, like a live broadcast where, yes, you can interact with me and talk and ask questions, and I can take submissions and answer them in real time. That would be really cool. But to do that, I need your support. There'd be also things like, hey, what if I were to build a basic sketching course for you Patreon fans, those who are the most dedicated and do contribute to the cause? Well, I can do that if I have the resources. So this is just an opportunity for us to make this even better. I am so blown away by the support, and those of you who subscribed, the new subscribers, welcome. To the old subscribers, thank you again. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time right here on Sketchaday.